But we are live here on YouTube for the Big MX Radio Glendale Supercross pregame show. I am your host, Brad Gebhart. Most honestly, this show isn't even really my idea. This is mostly to blame. Like if you are enjoying this, you can thank Chris Riesenberg. If you're not enjoying this, you can also blame Chris Riesenberg because a lot of that has to do with him just being excited and wanting to have a show. And a little bit of chemistry when I was honestly just looking for somebody to break down and preview. I think it was the 450 class, or maybe it was the 250 East or West rolling into the season. And that has blossomed into the best kept secret in the sport of motocross, a show that just gains momentum every single week. We love seeing so many new people watching and commenting, some really nice feedback that we got on social media. But we're 2 minutes into this thing and I have not introduced my good friends and also my co-host for this show, a YouTube show like no other. Starting off, he is the 1990 125 East Supercross champion. He's got 8 total Supercross wins in the 125 class. He had one of the coolest looking Fox chest protectors back in the day when all of his Electroset numbers were sort of like cut out perfectly, sort of like side by each, running into each other. He is the 360 in your program, likely number 1 in your hearts, especially if you like X-rated stories told over YouTube. He is Denny Stevenson.
Well, hello, Brad, and what an introduction, man! I'll tell you, if I ever go on Johnny Carson or Jay Leno, I'm gonna have to introduce you. That just shows my age, because clearly my championship was 32 years ago, and most people probably listening weren't even alive then. But thank you for having me, and Checkers, thank you for all the hard work. Brad, you're not feeling well. I've been running a little late, but happy to be here as always. And we had a great show last weekend in Arizona, or not Arizona, Seattle.
Yes, sir. This is my version of the flu game. I am not hungover like Michael Jordan likely was for that. I just feel like absolute dog water. But we're going to soldier through. We will persevere and we will put in a great performance. Speaking of good performances, we just talked to Denny. Speaking of something that always leaves you asking for a little bit more, and that's why we keep doing more shows, is Chris Riesenberg. I'm amazed that he's able to show his face on a week after I believe he went 1-5 in the versus questions. There will be some sort of public punishment display of shame, very much like the Stonecutters episode of The Simpsons, where like they detached the stone of shame, and then maybe if he wins a few of these, he might get the stone of victory, which is ironically bigger. But he leaves without a trace. He came here tonight to get on my case because I'm taking too long introducing everybody. Chris Riesenberg, how do you spell your last name?
I before E except after C.
Perfect. I now know that thanks to my most recent article on Verb, which did feature none other than Chris Riesenberg, and I misspelt it on my phone. I misspelt it in the article, and then also my boss Chase Stahl over at Verb didn't catch it either, because of course how could he? And that's why that's just that many more people that more than likely spell your name incorrectly.
I blame Troy Dog. It's probably his fault. He's the CEO. He should have caught that mistake.
Fair enough.
I mean I'm part of the Pineapple Squad, so I blame him. And I guess your performance maybe wasn't as bad as my pick-em picks were last week, so it happens. But it's a new week, so we can mount a comeback, we can mount a charge. I think I put in extra questions this week so I can make up some ground that I lost, or I can lose even more ground, but we don't think that'll happen.
Go either way.
Some sabotage baked into the pie. Before we introduce the Race Tech Rewind, soaking up all of the hot topics from this last week, I have a gripe. Something's been grinding my gears. Checkers, I do not yet have gold valves. I have like 6 of these because you were nice enough to send me them to give away to the Big MX Radio faithful. And we are trying to give away a set of these gold valves tonight on the show. We're going to come up with a way to do that. But I don't have gold valves in any of my bikes. And yeah, I blame you, but also myself for being neglectful of that.
Well, there's this website that you can go on. It's www. You might want to write this down. Racetech, RACETECH.com. And you can order your gold valves, and then you can have plusher suspension with better bottoming resistance and increased traction. But did you know that suspension's not just bumps and jumps, but an actual properly set up motorcycle will go where you want it in the corners, hook up, track up, and all around feel like a better bike? I didn't know that either when I was racing for a long, long time until I finally had a good set of suspension. And it goes right along with what Paul Teed always says, the best you've ridden is the best you know. So why don't you go out there, get some good suspension from Racetech and try it out and then tell us about it. And you should probably do that, Brad. It's about riding season. It's coming around the corner.
Oh, hell yeah.
But enough about us slow old vet guys riding. Let's dive into this Racetech rapid rewind. Oh man, it's not actually going to be rapid this time though, because we have a little bit of a different show schedule. So we'll actually let you guys evaluate along these headlines a little bit. But Eli straight Chuck Norris roundhouse kicks Alito off his bike and grabs his red plate back. The Sexton ship gets hit by the Alito cannonball and sinks out of the title fight. Denny, I know you're going to have a lot to say on both Eli like flipping the switch mid-main event, going completely James Stewart style through the whoops, wide open, past guys. And Sexton, I think that the ship might have sunk, although he is still not mathematically eliminated for this title yet. So I don't know if I'm going to, I'm already drowning with the ship, so I might as well stay on it, right? Like continue to lie to myself that he's in this title fight, even though he's not.
Well, if you've learned anything from me over the years, is never give up an opinion, whether it starts to be wrong or not. Just ride that son of a ship into the ground. Just captain it, man, wide fucking open.
So you're saying there's a chance.
And I know you came into the season, all on the Sexton ship or the championship bandwagon, and he's actually rode fantastic here. Obviously, he has been the fastest guy multiple times. Yet there's just a constant brain farts that put him on the ground and makes mistakes. Jumping on red cross flags and whatnot. And I think he's so emotionally just fucked right now. Honestly, these are just a terrible word, but I think we've seen him year after year, race after race, just his emotions kind of get the best of him. The Nations, he did great, but I think he was very nervous. And this year he's battling with two of the best. I mean, Cooper Webb and Eli Tomac when it comes to grind and pound, and they will break you. And I think that they have. And Webb kind of did a little look back finger point at him in the heat race that I thought was funny. And but Tomac, yeah, the first lap they came to the whoops, I think it was the first turn. I mean, all 22 riders looked like C riders going to the whoops. I don't think they had looked to the parade lap, or they're all stuck in the rut. And then out of the blue, with Eli and everybody kind of selling their ways, I actually have the main on right now to kind of just keep me up to date, because it was such a great main event. Racing this year has been so fantastic. But Eli went wide and decided, fuck it, I'm just gonna get some momentum and get this bike going up on top of him instead of fighting this long rut that was out of a corner that was so slow. And Eli got the job done once again. And it goes back to when you guys were calling him Eli Tomac, and people were like, man, is he done? Is he finished? Is he, and I'm like, man, he just won Daytona like 2 weeks ago, and it still was only 3 points behind Coop. And now look at him, 2 red plates, heading into round 12. What a fantastic season we're in for, or we've been having, and what we're in for these last 5 or 6 rounds.
Yeah, it was definitely pretty neat watching Eli at both Indianapolis and again in Seattle kind of find different lines that are outside of the main line and stay away from some of the deep ruts and the gnarly stuff. By going wide, he was actually squaring all the way back across the inside where everyone else was going inside to out. And it probably made it a lot easier on himself, to be honest. And he didn't have to ride down. I saw some of the guys like trying to ride down the tough blocks between the rut and the tough blocks. And that gets super sketchy because you're right by the tough blocks. Plus you're trying not to drop in and start swapping off the edge of the rut. That line choice and just experience in veteran riding is pretty nuts from Tomac. Speaking of looking like a veteran, Jett Lawrence was really, really good once again. Jett flew through the air and then to the top of the podium. Jett and McAdoo crashed dirty, but Jett cleans up the main. I don't even know where you want to start with that, Brad, if you want to talk about Jett's dominance or the crash in the heat race, but I'll let you take it away with whichever of those and take it away.
All right. Well, starting off in the heat race, because that's where the conversation really sort of is directed. The main event, for the most part, was a bit of a snoozer, except for a late race charge from RJ Hampshire. I'll just go ahead and say ill-advised. Like, I like the fight of Cameron McAdoo. I like, obviously, he feels like he wants to take some swings and race with Jett, which is something that a lot of people shy away from, or maybe not shy away from, but just straight up, they don't assert themselves to try and really put the tools to this kid. It's like the body language of a lot of racers seems to me of just sort of like, yeah, it's his year and there's nothing you can do about it, and just sort of move on. And yeah, hats off to McAdoo. Was it the best move in the world? No. Was it a little bit ill-advised? Yes. But at the end of the day, kind of no harm, no foul, because it didn't end up being anything as far as like, I tell you, like, no one was injured. I'm sure that the front of Jett's bike was a little twisted up, but he was obviously no worse for wear, still able to win the main event. And then, yeah, the main event was just another piece of evidence that Jett Lawrence is he's certainly the fastest in the class, either coast right now. I don't think he's a ton faster than his brother. You're splitting hairs there, maybe a few tenths of a second regularly over a few laps. And at that point, if they race each other, when they race each other, it'll be about track position and who's sort of feeling it on that day. I think they're that close. But on the West Coast, I don't think there's anyone right now that can seriously run the same pace as Jett Lawrence right now. I think that guy got hurt at the first round, and yeah, the series has been hurt ever since.
For sure. Like, you have to assume, and I think we've talked about it a little bit on this show, that it's conscious for McAdoo to immediately attack back and try to rough up Jett a little bit to get him out of his rhythm and his routine, because if you could let him get away at all, he's gone. They can't catch him speed wise when he's dialed in. So they have to do something to try to mentally rattle him. I watched it over and over again, and basically the way that corner, you kind of float into the rhythm and you drift to the right as you come into that section just naturally, because you're still turning as you're getting into it. And Jett, I think, knew Cameron was coming down the inside, and he just straightened up and went straight down the section where Cameron still was drifting right. Went to step off that table, steps right into the back of him. And while that was the race line, I mean, you have to have instinct there that you're still turning and you can't jump into the guy, unfortunately. And it was a racing incident and mistake that was very, very costly in the moment, but it really, yeah, like you said, didn't become a big deal because they didn't get hurt. But you got to think it's like almost like Cameron's panicking in that situation of, I have to get him back right now, because otherwise he's going to get away. And
yeah, and to be honest, that he didn't have more than a couple of straightaways there. Like, yeah, that's not the best place to, and he ran out of room and they ended up coming together. But if he waits 15 more seconds, maybe 2 more corners, that the window is closed. So you can still call it ill-advised because it didn't work, but the other option was just watch Jett race off into the night.
For sure. But I mean, at the same point, he can't be putting himself on the ground and causing more injuries. So I'm all for them going forward in racing.
It was a violent crash for both of them. I mean, obviously, anytime you crash when you're tripping to a rhythm section like that, and we kind of always give shit about these tough blocks, but I think they've saved a few lives already this year. With Eli earlier, and then as well with those two, because it was pretty violent. They flipped. I think they caught the tough blocks actually slowed the rotation of their bodies down and stuff. But Jett has been so buttery smooth, and you can't get away from it. And it's hard to blame Cameron because he is that guy who puts 110% in, and he knows balls to the wall finish is what's going to get the job done, hopefully most of the time for him. And the main event was the same. I think they had a great main event. He's got to be having nightmares about RJ Hampshire. I can't even imagine what he's going through. That this time he actually chased RJ down till the end and got passed at the very end by RJ once again. And man, it's just, they're all three riding phenomenally, very well this year. And it's nice to see them all staying healthy. And we got the injury bug out of the way before the season, and everybody's staying healthy, which is cool.
Yeah. Speaking of the Hampshire thing, that's actually brings us right to our next headline. Deja vu, not just a strip club anymore. 250 podium, exactly the same for the 4th time in 5 races. Denny, McAdoo gets run down late again by Hampshire, and in 4 of the 5, except for that one Triple Crown that was the night that McAdoo and Hampshire both were laying on the ground hurting themselves, and Jett can couldn't get it done. It's been Lawrence, Hampshire, McAdoo. What do you think?
It's crazy that you'd think that eventually Cam would get the best of RJ, and it's got to be eating him up because, you know, he wants to win and he hasn't even been able to get a second. You know, he's been struggling just to beat RJ Hampshire, who's a fantastic rider, obviously. Looks more comfortable in that Husky. I think we've seen him in a while. His rhythm through the whoops, his aggression. And then to chase Hampshire down after RJ passed him, you would thought he was good. And then here comes RJ with 2.5 or about a lap and a half to go. Does the perfect apex pass that I think we've talked about before. If anything, just you and I on text thread with our buddies. RJ landed at the very beginning of the berm. He pivoted and went straight for Cam's front wheel or the middle.
I think he surprised Cam. I think he straight up surprised him.
It was so fast. I mean, it was such a quick pivot because I've always said the easiest way to punt someone in a last chance qualifier is you let them think they're following you on the outside, and then when they go inside to kind of block you and drift wide, you've already pivoted at the beginning of the berm or the bowl or where the first tail block is, and you just go straight to the bowl. And that's basically what RJ did, and he did it with the full throttle. And I think you're totally right. He got to the apex, or not the end, but the end of the bowl before Cameron got there, where you really would initially have contact. And RJ just had a fantastic ride. It was cool that they kept Jett in their sights the whole time. There's a couple of times they gained on him and kept him honest. But I think we all know Jett right now is riding that. It's even like Hunter is, but I think they're both riding about 90%, knowing that if they can stay off the ground and they're already out front, that they don't have to push it that far. And but once again, it'd be nice to see somebody else in that podium because those three have been kicking these guys' asses.
Yeah, I'd have to give a quick shout out and some credit to RJ Hampshire for maturing a little bit this season, because I've always put him in like a very similar category to a Jordan Smith type, where he's crazy fast but constantly crashing and constantly on the ground. And other than the Anaheim 2 crash where he blew his hand off in the sand, he's been much better. He did push the front end while leading, but I think that's just both Cameron and RJ, they're trying so hard to beat Jett Lawrence because they know he's so perfect that they're almost making themselves make mistakes. I feel like it's back like when McGrath won all but one race during the season. There was multiple races that year where there was guys that maybe could have beat him, but they made mistakes because they pushed themselves into mistakes trying to be extra better, extra good.
And they were racing with each other. I think we were kind of leading to that like RJ and Cameron, I think if it was just one of them, that they'd have a better shot at chasing down Jett, or at least running with Jett. But they're so not consumed, but they're battling with each other, that they're giving up time, they're making mistakes instead of focusing on getting to Jett. That I think that sometimes that messes them up. And that's very similar. It's a perfect example. Great job of that with McGrath, because there were so many good riders that year. They were right behind Jeremy that, you know, the Rocco, Fro, even Factory Phil was crushing that year. That they were, and Rhino, they were busy kind of killing each other and letting Jeremy either get away or catch them and chase them down, which is Jett has done all year as well. So that was really good, Checkers. Well done.
Wow, look at that compliment. That's awesome. And the other thing that was really similar is Jett's starts are very much like Jeremy was too. Like, he is out front right away in sprinting week after week after week, and I don't think those guys are gonna be able to beat him from behind. So they're gonna have to figure out a way to start in front of him, and then try to throw him off of his game. So we'll see. Though we're going back to a Triple Crown in Glendale. We'll get to that in a little bit. And he hasn't won one of those yet. So we have one thing that we can look at.
Which was a great response when Daniel Blair goes, "We're going to it." You're just kind of wrapping up the interview on the podium after you won the main event. And he goes, "We're going to a Triple Crown next week." And I think it caught Jett a little bit by surprise. He's like, "Oh shit!"
Right. Back in the 450 class, Webb shoots his shot in heat win, but stuck watching Tomac pull the win in the main. Brad Cooper throwing a little attitude out there, which is always exciting and awesome for us to talk about and whatnot, but you got to back it up in the main event, don't you?
Yeah, you know what? My favorite Cooper Webb is an angsty, chip on his shoulder Cooper Webb that is really able to sort of execute his race plan to the best of his ability and just move forward. Everything about his day this last weekend for Cooper Webb showed me that he was frustrated, that he was letting his emotions get the better of him, and that he didn't feel comfortable on his motorcycle. He looked as pissed off as you can possibly get after a second place finish. Although if he doesn't like that, just ask Chase Sexton about not winning races, ones that you felt like you should have won. But for all intents and purposes, like you just didn't have it, and sometimes some nights you don't. It was a frustrating day for Cooper Webb, and honestly, like as much as he clearly, even in the press conference, he mentioned that the the finger guns, or like the little like Okuda Mutombo finger wave is like and yeah, I think that was a little bit of head games. So I'm trying to send a message to the young kid that like, you might be fast, you might be great, but you got to beat me first. And yeah, I think that's just like, that's a little bit of his bravado coming out. But yeah, like you said, he wasn't able to back it up in the main event, and that's going to leave a rider feeling mighty frustrated when yeah, when you're battling a guy like Eli Tomac, who you don't like giving up points to in bunches or three at a time. He's has to share the red plate now, and yeah, I don't think he's at all happy about it.
Yeah,
Nor should he be.
I was just watching this, as we're sitting here right now, and I think once again, Webb did not come out of the gate firing. I think it was 2 minutes in, and Eli tried passing him through the whoops with the slingshot move. Webb kind of gave him over, kind of swerved over him on the triple to take the inside line. Eli already predicted it, went wide, pivoted on the outside, and then went triple past Webb, and then immediately dropped 3 seconds on him. Obviously, Webb's got into second eventually once Chase went down, made some moves around Barsha and Roxon and whatnot. And then Coop put in his charge and started kind of catching Eli little by little. But he had mentioned in interviews prior to this weekend and a couple weekends before that he needs to pull the trigger sooner in that main event and can't get Eli to let Eli get away, because the new Eli is no longer Eli Tomac. He is he's tough, he's strong, he's mentally strong. You're not gonna get him to fold. He's sure the fuck not gonna tuck a front end like Chase has done the last 18 rounds. So it was a good ride by Webb, and I love seeing him all angry, because it'll be interesting how he treats these triple grounds with the shorter main events, and knowing he's got to come out of the gate fast and hard, because these first 2 laps, if you get 2 or 3 seconds dropped on you, you don't have the time to make it up like Cooper's been doing in these last few rounds.
For sure. One of the things that is important to look at is that Cooper Webb in the past, he can play these head games with Ken Roxon or now with Chase Sexton, but Eli Tomac he's not going to be phased by these head games that Webb plays, and Webb's not faster than him. So he's going to have to win it with just flat out good riding and hoping that, Eli somewhat makes mistakes or has some off nights, because right now Eli has 6 wins, Webb only has 2. They might be tied in points, but the better rider right now has been Tomac. Just he needs to avoid those, 6th, 7th, 8th place finishes. And I think that he'll be standing with the number 1 plate at the end of the year. That is, unless Chase Sexton somehow learns how to keep his bike on 2 wheels, which I think I've all but given up hope on that.
Don't quit. Don't give up. We got to have something to argue about.
Yeah. Well, I think that we'll all agree that too on the next guy, Justin Barsha. Barsha banged out a podium. Barsha continues to smash the points button instead of the other riders. Bam Bam has continuously been really, really good. And before I throw this over to you, Denny, I have a little theory that I want you to touch on. And I mentioned it in our text thread, I think the other day, was, last year when the new bike came out for the KTM guys, all the riders said how amazing it was and how much it was improved over the old bike that was already a championship winning bike. And then they went to the races and they had some serious issues, primarily in the whoops. But I'm wondering if now that they figured out those issues and got it better, if all the things that they really liked about the bike when they first got on it are starting to really help these guys. Because if you look across the board over there, all the guys are doing better. And obviously Barsha was on the old bike still last year, but he might be benefiting from getting on the new bike now that it's better, because AP's been better, Webb's been better, and Barsha. So what do you think on the Barsha thing and my theory on the bike?
It makes a lot of sense. They obviously have a year ahead of Justin on it and development. And if he had any similar issues that Aaron had or Marv had or Coop had last year, that they have a few things for Justin to try and see if it works. And he looks very comfortable in motorcycle. I think we can all agree on that. But also I've heard on the other end of things that Roger isn't always real good at sharing what's going on at the Orange team with the red and white team. So I don't know, those rumors are always necessarily true, but it's some of the grumblings I've heard in the past. But Justin's looking fantastic right now. 2 weeks ago, Was it at Indy? Indy was the ruddy one. Yeah, Indy. The way he rode that bike, I mean, he was balls to the wall, and that was a gnarly track, and he was letting the bike work underneath him, much like a 252 stroke or 254 stroke, unlike a 450. I mean, he made the bike look light. And obviously, Justin's not a really big, tall, strong guy, but he's obviously very, very fit. His interviews have been fantastic afterwards. He's having fun. He's almost like making sure to let everybody know that he's doing well, because he's had obviously some skeptics in the past, but I didn't think he was going to have this great year, and he is kicking ass. And I look forward to each week him giving 100%. And I mean, there's 5-6 guys right now that can run up front, and obviously he's one of them who can come through the pack and wear guys out and then go in the interview and look like he just rode, got out of the shower in 5 minutes. He was clean. I mean, he's pumped, he's confident, and he's looking good in those bun tight Troy Lee design pants.
Yeah, it's pretty it's been pretty neat to see. I thought he would maybe take a step backwards this year, but he if you look at the end of the year, season after season, he's a top 5 guy. But he's doing it a little bit with more flash this year, and I think he has more speed than he's had. So it's really, really cool to see. Obviously, he's riding for a contract, and I think if this year didn't go so well, we might see Barcia leave the sport. But now I think you definitely will see him get a year or two on his deal. He's having fun. We'll get to keep him around, which it just keeps everything exciting. I'm sure his competitors aren't all that stoked because they have to worry about him running into the side of him all the time. But because he's never going to give you a lack of effort, and he's not going to let you leave the door open in front of him at any point in his races. So it's pretty crazy if you think back at one point. Remember, he was a privateer at Monster Cup and was going to be out of the sport, and he's had a second half of his career that has been impressive.
Very impressive.
You have something else, Danny, on that?
Well, just bring back, you were talking about if he hadn't had such a great year as he's having, that we would probably were expecting to go somewhere else next year. And I just heard a rumor that from Lewis Phillips that I guess Prado was possibly heading here to the United States a month ago. So they were 90% certain he was coming, and now all of a sudden Barcia's having a fantastic month. Prado's leading the points in the MXGP series, and I think they've kind of decided, well, we seem to have things working quite well. Why disrupt the boat, So yeah, good point on the Barcia deal. That reminded me of that. So that's I just want to add on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then also, I guess, kind of standing out over the weekend was privateers launch warships from the island. Hole shots stolen from the factory boys, but not the attention. We get all the storylines that they push about Jett and Deegan, and that first heat race started, and Hunter Yoder launches out to an amazing start, and they're immediately pushing the Carson Mumford storyline for PC Cowie, and I'm sitting here just banging my head against the wall, because this might be the only opportunity maybe in his career, but on the year for the Partzilla PRMX team to get a guy at the front of the field. And not only did he hole shot, it's not like he hole shot and then just fell right back in the pack. He literally led the race for a couple laps. Like, they had plenty of time to talk about him. They mentioned his name one time, and they never mentioned the team.
They don't know who it is,
and
they don't know.
It was very apparent that they knew nothing about him, and it was very, very frustrating for me. And if they had known, if the Feld guys were on their game, they would know that my 5-year-old thinks Hunter Yoder is the man because of this show called Blippi that he's on. That's like you said, 55 million people watched it or something, Brad, which is ridiculous. Like, he's a household name. If you haven't seen it, it's a kid's show where he teaches Blippi to ride a dirt bike, and it's unreal. Like, and he backed it up again in the main event, which was awesome. And then also you got Kevin Moran's. He's been getting great starts, but he nailed both the heat race start and the main event start. His sponsor, Tank Masters, actually has $1,000 bonus for a heat race start and a $5,000 bonus for a main event start. So that was really awesome for him, and good job for him to put those programs together. And again, that's an opportunity for, like, that's a really cool story that sponsor is helping this privateer do this. And like, that's a story that I think people would get into, like, hey, he's got a 5K bonus for this. Heck yeah, I would go all out into the first turn too. Unfortunately, he overjumped and went down. But maybe the coolest part was he didn't just hole shot, but Sexton went by him, and he went right back by Sexton for a minute. It's like, I would probably just pull off and go straight up to the stands and chug a beer, to be honest. But he was like, no, I'm going to race while I'm up here.
If I'm Kevin Moran's, I'm like scouring the photography den for anyone who might have even the closest resemblance to a half decent sequence of photos of him passing Chase Sexton. And I'm getting those printed in full, beautiful, stunning HD. and having those plastered across my living room wall full time with like pot lights shining down on it and all
rope
that fun
strings.
stuff. Yeah.
So I did want to give Denny's buddy Carmichael a little bit of credit, because I kind of blew him out on Twitter about the whole deal. And then Hunter actually came on and replied, and Ricky said, go watch whatever the SMX show that they do after the races. And Ricky tried to make a little bit of amends for it and can give Hunter some love. So at least he knows who he is now.
Hunter Yoder at one point was like just as highly touted as Carson Mumford. Like they were both on that Honda 150 super mini program with like super trick bikes, and they were sort of casualties of the Geico team coming apart.
Yeah, I was actually sponsoring Hunter when he got that Geico deal, and I've been very close to the family since he was about 7 years old. So
of course
there was 3 teams actually going after him at the same time. He completely swept the 65 classes at Loretta's, and it's pretty crazy that it was him and Mumford up front, because they both were kind of part of that Geico team falling apart, and both really trying to rebuild their careers at the same time in the same race. And Yoder's had a really, really good season. As a whole, he's been riding really, really well. I watched him in San Diego, and I was like, this is a completely different rider from last year. He was borderline not making main events. He definitely tried really hard at the beginning of the race to stay up front, and probably mentally blew himself up a little bit and faded, because I do know he's in really, really good shape. But he fell back to 14th, but he's showing speed, and he's had a top 10 finish now. And also you have to give props to that team and program for giving him a bike that can get up front like that. And obviously his results are pretty good. So he's on a competitive equipment. And I mean, that team is also built up from absolutely nothing. It was a hodgepodge of bikes, not even on the same brand at one point when they first started. And it's a legit team and program now. So props to Partzilla PRMX as well.
Absolutely. Denny, do you have anything to add?
No, again, it's just I love the fact that Checkers knows all these history of these guys and has a history with them, because it takes somebody who's paid attention to their careers, and Hunter and obviously Moran's with their starts, Hunter Yoder, that's badass. And I actually was looking down I was getting the lap time ready for our MXD. I had to kind of change things around, and I didn't really catch that Moran's had whole shot. It already had crashed. I just knew my phone started blowing up with Checkers all excited about it and whatnot. So yeah, hats off to him. I know that a lot of people were talking about Yoder before the season even started, when we were doing some of our draft games and seeing who would be, maybe was a little lower ranked. It should have been higher ranked. And then he went out and kicked ass. So good for all those guys. And then one last thing before we head into this next segment, Brad, the race I was watching for this last weekend just wrapped up, and you had talked about Cooper Webb's look on his face. I don't think I quite caught that either. Eli obviously gets off, they give him a hug, he's smiling, he takes his helmet off, and the camera goes to Cooper, and he's laying on his crossbar, got his helmet off, and if anyone probably would have said anything, we might have just stabbed him right in the neck right there. I don't think I've ever exactly. I mean, he was just straight pissed off. So hit his Triple Crown. I'm really excited to see how that goes, and reiterating what I just saw and his anger and how frustrated he was. Like, wow, I don't think I quite caught that on Saturday night. So anyways, let's move on.
Absolutely. Last thing I'll say before we move on from our first segment of the show, 35 minutes into this, we are absolutely brutal at keeping it to a strict timeline. Julian from PRMX, talk about a team manager who does right by his guys. Like that guy, he hasn't always had the best support, and I don't know if he was like the best business savvy. Like he literally has learned so much on the fly, and certain things that as a privateer team you're having to make certain sacrifices and go with certain brands that like maybe you would have had a different preference. But he goes after the heaviest of hitters in the industry, and also when it comes down to not being able to secure certain things, he allows guys to go out and get their own stuff that doesn't clash with a sponsor or something like that. If you notice, a lot of guys in the PRMX team, some of them wear Fox boots, some of them don't, but boots is something that's so important to a rider feeling that connectivity to the bike. He allows those guys to go get what they need. He also makes sure they have really, really solid helmets. Those Arai helmets are unreal. So for a lot of reasons, Julian does really well by his all of his athletes, including Justin Hill, from a couple of years
And
from
teams like
last year.
and repeatedly, I think we all can agree. Everyone, it's teams like that help make the sport what it is and gives riders a chance and gets them at the races. So yeah, hats off to that whole entire program. Well done.
Definitely. All right, next up, brought to you
real
by
quick, Brad.
BigMXRadio.com. If you're not already subscribed to Big MX Radio, row up. It's on iTunes, Spotify. You can find us right off the website. And if you like more of my content, maybe you think that I might be able to put some written words together, you can check out SwapMoto, and I'm on there minimum 2-3 times a week. They assign me the stuff almost daily. So I'm really pumped to be full time with those guys. They made me an email and the whole thing. So big Brad at SwapMoto.com. If you want to tell me that my writing sucks. But we're going straight into the preview for the Glendale Supercross. Some people call it Phoenix. Hell, you can call it the AZSX if that makes you feel good. But either way, it's going to be a triple crown, which means awesome. You're going to have the fastest guys of that sign up. They're all going to be in every single race all night long, which includes the Supercross futures. You've got Daxton Bennick seeing if he can make it 3 for 3. You've got Casey Cochran that's going to try and upset the apple cart and get in there. You also have Preston Baseflug, who he himself went from 6th to 3rd in the 2 rounds he's had so far. The guy is extremely fast, extremely driven. And oh, by the way, this happens to be a home race for Julien Beaumier, otherwise known as Juju. That guy is absolutely lights out speed. He's from Lake Havasu, which is a spitting distance from this dome stadium that is absolutely beautiful. It's always a fast track. It's long rhythm lanes. They usually incorporate some sort of sand section. And one of the things that I love about it, it's the biggest floor we use, and it's a concrete floor because the football stadium actually rolls out on a conveyor belt so that they can grow natural grass. Why that's important is because the Dirtworks crew, they have all the they get to work off of a concrete floor, and all of the dirt gets pushed into the middle, and they build it out from there, which always allows for a nice long straightaway. No across the track straightaway or start straights. We've never seen that at Phoenix. We usually always see a start gate that starts around the 10-yard mark and actually usually extends all the way back to the final row. What you'll probably see on this particular track map, I haven't seen it, but usually have a triple at the end of that. It's always great viewing. It's a pretty new stadium, and you guys will, and as I know, the pit situation in Arizona is pretty much second to none. It's going to be nice. It's going to be beautiful outside. It's the desert. So yeah, put on some sunblock and get ready to catch a tan off these very shiny motorcycles. Chex, take it away.
Yeah, Phoenix is one of my favorite races, and I mean, I always liked it even when it was downtown. It was a cool stadium there, but the pit situation was pretty tight there, to say the least. So now with the new stadium, the Fan Fest is huge. They usually have a ton of extra activities going on. Right across the way is the Westgate thing. If you haven't been to the Phoenix race, it is definitely one of the top 3 that I've ever been to, and I've been to a majority of the races. It's a great one to go to for sure. The track and the racing is always usually pretty good too. It's a dome stadium. It's a big floor. And so there's long lanes, which usually allow guys to actually, come out of the corner, get up beside someone and pass them before they get to the next corner, so that it's not just follow the leader type stuff. It's knowing the dirt stays together really well there, obviously, because it can pack in hard. So they have some big long whoops. I'm a little bit scared about how that's going to happen this weekend because of it being a futures race. I would be really, really bummed to not get some big gnarly Phoenix whoops because it's a futures race.
Not going to get them.
And they have a unique split lane that we haven't seen one, especially like that. It's a split downer rhythm. In a couple of years that we haven't seen them. That they always look cool, especially if they can get guys going into different rhythms. And you get one side going low and one side going high and jumping at different spots, but oftentimes those things end up being pretty one-lined, and it's actually just a narrower racetrack. So hopefully that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the long, fast start. Holy crap. I would not want to be those guys. They're going 4th gear into the first turn. And I think it was Baggett one year, just absolutely yard sailed himself. But maybe I'm just getting old. I'm sure we'll hear about it all night long on TV about how crazy fast and long the start is, the longest and fastest one in the sport of Supercross all year long. Oh my gosh, they're going like
Saturday,
70 miles an hour
Saturday,
into the first
Saturday.
turn. Sunday, 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 it's Supercross. Okay, sorry, got a little hyped up there. I'm
No
getting a little
kidding.
excited for Glendale. Let's take a look at last year's results. What was it? Triple Crown last year, and guess who's the best guy at Triple Crowns? Eli flipping Tomac, and he went 1-1-3 last year. Mookie was second, actually, who's not there. Sexton, you're going to be really shocked, but he went 11-3-1. It's just mind blowing.
Shocker.
That he wasn't able to be consistent. Jason Anderson, who's always awesome on the slick soil, was fourth with a 2:12.2, and Kenneth Roxon actually had a decent race last year before he exited the series with 4, 6, 7 moto scores at a Triple Crown. And you have to talk about Roxon because he was relevant at the A2 Triple Crown.
So was
Brad,
Anderson.
Let's rock into some more segments, and then we can get more into this Glendale stuff.
All right. Well, did Denny want to say something there for a second?
Oh, I was just agreeing with you guys. I was just
Oh.
going to ask a silly question. If we ever think that they might count all 3 crowns or motos or races in one night, or will it always be just the overall? Probably just overall.
I think it'll always just be the overall. And honestly, like that's the only thing that I don't love about the Triple Crowns. Like if you just want to take like the bite-size entertainment that is a Triple Crown, it's awesome. But like you have like it's a whole bunch of racing that adds up to the equivalent of one main event. Like you could have a guy who goes 1-5-1 and like has this awesome night, but he ends up second because someone else went 2-2-2. You know what I mean? Like it's just sort of like a lot of times it doesn't always come down to who did the best, or I guess like who was the fastest. This is about consistency for what the overall result is. But bottom line is there's always good racing. So I doubt they're ever going to award 75 points, or I guess it would be 77 points.
81. There's 81 now.
81. I hate that.
78.
I absolutely hate that. But regardless, I think that would be too much. But am I mistaken, or are they actually doing that for the final round of the SMX playoff series?
The
That's a great
points
question.
for the
I don't-
SMX series per round they double each time. But I don't think it's actually like per the Triple Crown main events. And honestly,
Okay.
It's been a while since I've looked at that format in the schedule. I know when we talked about Triple Crown last time, I told you guys I have the fix. It's a brilliant idea. Is you 25 points for first, not actual championship points, just event scoring points for the first main and the second main, and then you double the points for the third one, and then you get your overall, and you still get points off the overall. It makes the third main event count. Instead of having a guy just cruise around and get second place because he already has a 1-1 going into it.
Yeah.
Win the overall. But that's not here or there because they're not going to change the starts. In fact, they're going to freaking greats for outdoors now too.
I hate that too.
So
Take the start.
yeah, whatever.
Take the start
They're not
hooks
gonna
away.
fix those, and they're not going to fix the Triple Crown format. So moving on.
Take the starting hooks away. And anyone who like I'm not sponsored by any companies that make them, so I can make this statement without sounding biased. Is like in college they let you use. Do they not let you use aluminum bats? College baseball.
They do. They just shrunk in the barrel because they were killing. And I know this because we have the College World Series in Omaha, Nebraska. And that's the only time I pay attention to it. And the Huskers actually were pretty good a couple seasons ago. But yes, they made the barrels smaller, so they weren't coming off the bat so quickly and nearly killing pitchers. So
Right.
I understand your point. I understand your point entirely. Yeah, I never had greats. I never had really even. I don't think we even had the
start device didn't come out till 01 when Yamaha had like a really archaic version of it. What I'm trying to say is that like at the amateur level, like you can make certain changes that allow for some sort of advantage. That's why there's different rules in the pros. That's why in college football you need to have 1 foot in bounds, but get to the pros, now you got to get 2 feet in bounds. And like, yeah, you might be able to get good starts with a whole shot device in the amateurs. Well, we're taking them off for the pros. And honestly, I think that would increase safety at the first corner instead of everyone just like setting it and forgetting it. and add some skill to it. Like I think that there was something to be said about a guy who's just a good starter and could start on any type of surface, whether they were at Broome, Tioga, Millville, Unadilla, or Glen Helen. I think that was sort of like one of those little spicy things that made motocross so great. And taking those things away sucks.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, guys have gotten so good at coming off the grate, and it's so consistent that we've seen a lot of these halfway down the start straight collisions that are just absolutely gnarly because the track's funneling and nobody really has an edge or a wheel yet. And
they're not shutting off.
But if you have to go up over a gate and without a start hook, it creates a bigger skill gap, which is going to create separation before they're even 3 or 4 feet out of the gate, let alone the slower speeds down into the first turn. I think it's a no-brainer for safety, but I also think that they should be doing at least 2 row starts as well to open up the floor space, and that's not happening either. I just feel like we're going in the wrong direction by making it easier. Like, the starts are so important. It's such a specialized skill. Even if you let them keep the start hooks, I prefer them at least going up and over a gate so that it creates a little more of that separation instead of launching off of a grate. But
yeah, I totally agree.
Fat and slow. So,
all right, time for the next segment, sponsored by MXD360.com. Dash for cash. If you're not already playing MXD360.com, get real, because you can sign up today. You probably still have enough time to beat me in points, even though there's only 7 rounds to go. Or 7 rounds? 6 rounds to go. Regardless, you can probably still beat me because I'm absolutely brutal at the game. It's a salary-based league. We'll talk about it a little bit later in the show. But the coolest thing about it is that if you sign up, you're signing up for an awesome experience to play a cool game, but you're also signing up because you want to win the King's gear. You want to win Jeremy McGrath signed gear. It's going to be, I'm sure, some Troy Lee stuff. You're not going to wear it. You're going to mount it up on the wall. Your wife's going to bug you about taking it down, but you love it so much because the king himself signed his name. He scribbled all over that gear, and it's going to be yours if you sign up today. Go do that. Check it out. All right.
Or she might ask you to wear it.
Or she might ask you, or you could have her wear it to bed, and that's not weird.
That's not weird at all.
No.
And there's a free MXGP game as well going on right now.
Yes,
so,
absolutely. I'm 2 rounds behind on that, but I think I'm going to enter anyway. Can't be any worse than I currently do at Supercross. All right, lobbying this first question to the best ever at Arena Cross Dash for fucking cash, and that is none other than Denny Stevenson. Which 250 rider benefits the most from the Triple Crown format? The curse of Lawrence's curse. Styles won a race the last time we did this. Actually, the guy who won the race didn't even win one. Or you have Kitchen with the overall at A2. Who does this format benefit the most?
Well, I only know him as Styles, so I'm gonna have to go. Robertson, what a great race! I had
homosexual alter ego.
Yeah, what a crazy main event for him. I caught that the other night. Going down with the whole shot, out front running. I mean, he was well into about halfway, I think, or 5 minutes in at least, and then got sideways in the whoops. I'm not quite sure, even a couple times I watched, if maybe Cam got in the back of him and kind of helped project his bike off the off everything. But otherwise, these guys rode really well. Jett, I think, can maybe put away the curse. He's been riding away well, but and the irony was his last time that his 2 best rivals had pissed it away. So it'll be very interesting to see if Cameron and RJ can put it together a little bit better, get a start on Jett, and Jett can keep it off the ground. Otherwise, it's going to be boring 3 main events, which I doubt, because we've had some great racing all year long. And I'd like to see, like I said, I'd like to see Jett get beat by one of those guys, because I don't want him to have more overall Supercross main events this year than Hunter, because I think that was another bet that Checkers and I had. And I want Hunter to be, I want the big bro to take down the little bro this season. Instead of 1.5 and 1, I want it to be 1 and 1.5.
There you go. All right. Never made a dash for cash, but Checkers, which of the 450 riders benefits from the Triple Crown format the most? And I'll also throw a curveball at you. Who does it hurt?
I think that history shows that it has to benefit Tomac a lot. And we saw Roxon was really relevant at A2 in the Triple Crown, and he's typically been pretty good at him. But the winner of A2 was Chase Sexton. He's always fast early in the races. His problems typically come out late in the races. Typically, I would say it benefits Sexton the most, except Tomac's so good and it's Glendale, so I don't think he stands a chance at beating Eli. Who does it hurt? Well, I guess that leaves Cooper Webb, which I don't think it really hurts him all that much. So Dylan Ferrandis isn't out there, so his terrible starts aren't relevant. So off the top of my head, I guess it hurts privateers because they don't get the TV time that they normally would get. That's who they hurt.
Fair enough.
Speaking of which,
Grant and thanks for everybody commenting in the chat right now. Grant says that it hurts Webb and benefits Sexton, but he does need to break out the dictionary or at least go back to school as benefits has 2 E's in it, my friend. All right, switching things back to Debo. Christian Craig got on TV ripping in qualifying and then winning the heat race, which honestly he bit hot under the collar at the very end of it because AP was coming. He's obviously improved. We have 6 rounds left to go. How many top 5s will he have in those rounds?
Well, I don't think he's going to get to 8, which was my initial prediction at the first of the year. And what a great time to see Christian get it. I've been saying repeatedly that if he can get out front with the lead pack, he can run with that pace, I believe. He just hasn't seen it all year. I think he was in obviously a much easier heat race than the second one.
Oh, that was ridiculous.
Yeah, and we saw in both classes. It's
second heat race was like a main.
It's crazy how 1, 3, 5, 7, 8 going to second heat, and that seemed like in both classes that was the top 5. Ended up in that, the second heat of both of them, which was wild. So, but it was cool to see Craig get a heat race win. We haven't seen him on TV much this year. And then what's he go out and do when he starts the first lap of the main event in 22nd? But he lays down some quick laps. I think he gets up to 8th or 9th there at the end, which was good to see him. But he never got to take advantage of getting that good pick on the gate. We had probably second fastest heat, and then somehow shit all went to hell. So to get, I think, I don't even know. I've been all over the place, all over the map, just trying to say, go Christian, get some good finishes. And I don't think there's a top 5 in him this year with 6 rounds. I've already thrown the towel in that one. It's good to see him around every race. He hasn't missed a round yet. He's learning. I think he's getting better on that bike. I believe he has a 2-year deal with Huskies, so he should be back with them next year.
Yep.
And hopefully he's learned a lot, stays healthy out this year, and keeps getting better and stronger. But he seems to be off the pace still a little bit. But 17 rounds, if he gets them all done, and he gets Rookie of the Year honors.
He'll get a top 5 in either Salt Lake or Denver, I predict.
Yeah, but the last one could be, but I don't know. Who knows at this point? I just wanted 5 top 8s. I think he's very close to that, and my goals have changed. And just seeing him finish all 17 rounds and having him and his good buddy Hayden Deegan's relationship grow.
Yeah, I need Ferrandis to come back and get me a top 10, and I also need Dean Wilson to get me a top 10. But that's just selfish because I want to stay alive in Supercross Survivor. For those watching who's not already playing Supercross Survivor, hit up Checks, find out all about it, and play it next year so I can take your money. Checkers, Enzo Lopes was good again in Salt Lake or in Seattle. Do you think a factory ride is going to take a factory team is going to take a look at him for a year coming up? I could easily see him sliding over at Star.
Well, I think that that club would be pretty upset, honestly, to lose him to Star. I think that just they've strained the Yamaha relationship, but they have to at least be looking because he is much improved and he's doing well and he's showing they can consistently do it. The issue comes in is he's not riding outdoors. He hasn't been riding outdoors, and there's very few teams that are going to pick him up and hire him to not ride outdoors or not perform outdoors. So I could see Star picking him up as a Supercross only guy and keeping, they have Guillaume Ferris or whatever that they've invested in a little bit as an outdoor only guy. And that's kind of what they have going on with Jordan Smith, I believe. But I think he probably stays right where he's at as long as they can afford to keep him. His price has definitely gone up with the performance that he's gotten, but also it gives him the opportunity to go make a bunch of money at World Supercross, or I guess he can make tons of money in Brazil still. As we know, those countries really like their athletes when they're good, and has a huge following, and he can go down there and just hang out. And it'd be pretty crazy to be a really well-paid 250 Supercross guy, not on a factory team, and racing just in trying 8-9 races a year. It'd be pretty nuts.
Yeah, chasing around Brazilian girls. Forget about it.
So yes, I think that they're probably looking at him, but he needs to ride outdoors if he really wants one. And I do think he needs to go after one of those programs and teams to give himself the best shot at, trying to become a championship guy. Like, it's really cool what he's doing now, but if you want to go the next level up, I think he needs a legit full-on factory program. And that's no slight to the program he's on. Just there's more resources out there.
Yeah, totally agree. Devo, you've been pretty harsh on Maximus Voland and his lack of results thus far in his young career. He's dealt with a lot of injuries and, for the most part, not delivered on the billing of what you'd expect from a KTM factory 250 rider. We've certainly seen championships from them in the past. Has he done enough already, or does he need to do more in order to keep his ride? And if he hasn't, if he does not end up doing enough to keep that ride, who do you replace him with?
I've been more just harsh on any factory guy who's not going to make a main event. And, Max actually has had some struggles, but he's also, I know his dad very well, or not very well. I mean, I used to race with his dad. I know his uncle. I know how hard they put into it. I know that Talon had a different path for Max. I think we all do, that he was headed to the GPs, or at least to Europe to ride the EMX series. And then was offered an incredible ride through Roger, because Roger saw something he probably saw in Ryan Dungey. And as we've heard through the grapevine of kind of when things aren't going well for you on the KTM brand, you're going to catch some shit. And obviously Cooper has heard that they were not real happy with him last year. Roger and Ian are very demanding, which is understandable. I know Mitch is as well. So he might have already Max may have already ran his time there at KTM, and there's nothing wrong with that. New scenery, I'm a firm believer of. I still can't believe seeing Strells at Cowie, and not because of Cowie. I think maybe sometimes it's just nice to get on a different bike with a new environment. Again, as we saw Tomac and even Cooper Webb leaving Factory Yamaha. So I think Max is getting better. I think he's going to do better outdoors. I think he's going to be a consistent 4 to 7 guy each week, as we've seen. He's getting better and smarter. I think he's maybe a little bit better outdoor rider. But I think KTM's gonna put their flag in Tom Viale right now. And I think we heard a rumor somewhere this week that who was looking to go that way. I'm kind of surprised when I heard that.
Kitchen.
And,
Kitchen.
Levi Kitchen.
Yeah, and it's all up to Roger, man, and what he sees in them. But I don't know if Kitchen, that's someplace he should go or not. But because it's a do or die. When you go pumpkin orange and you got Roger DeKosh in the corner, the man, you don't have the nickname the man for nothing. And when he's got enough power to get the whoops taken down, he's got enough power to send you home. So I think Vial will stay there. I think Max will go somewhere else. And the Kitchen rumor is interesting. I really don't have another guess, because the Chitty class is such a crazy show, and who's going to go there. I mean, Robertson going to Star, I wasn't predicting. Smith to go into Star, I wasn't predicting. So I love silly season in March, and we're already getting some of that taste already.
Oh yeah.
I think that's a huge win for KTM if they're able to grab Kitchen, because it does look like he's got a bright future ahead of him and can potentially become a contender. And that 250 program over there in the US has really, really struggled to put up any kind of results. But that's a very, very bold move for Levi Kitchen to leave the dominant team in the 250 class over the past half a decade to go over to KTM. That's super unproven.
Yes.
Yeah. No. The last 10 years, maybe I give this about at least 6 or 7 years. Ever since Marvin moved off of that bike, it's been a rotating cast of guys who haven't quite delivered for KTM, whether it be the TLD, gas, KTM, whichever. They haven't been able to get it done. Even that 1 year with Justin Hill, that is a very forgettable year. So checkers, when it comes to the Hill brothers, Dino, Savacci, Nichols, Justin Cooper, they sit 10th through 15th in points right now. Should factory teams be looking at any of these guys to fill in full time? Give me your thoughts on that.
Well, I mean, if you look at it, it means that you have to replace somebody, unless somebody's adding an extra motorcycle. Yeah. And only one behind any of them is Nichols is getting beat by most of them, and really hasn't had a fantastic year. So I would think that Nichols's bike is definitely potentially available for someone. But I think you bring up Hunter and that bike's already filled.
I think he does do that too. I think that's 100% where they go, and Shimoda goes to Honda.
Yeah, it makes sense to me, because I think Hunter's ready, and I think we all agree Hunter's ready. If he wasn't so dominant this year, I think it looks completely different. But it makes complete sense for them if they can go. It's a lot easier to find a high level 250 guy that can win and hire them away than it is to hire a 450 guy that can go and win. And when you have one sitting in your truck that maybe not win, but he can battle in the top 5, I think Hunter can. I don't know whether he will, but he can. I mean, he's definitely not going to have the 450 career that Forkner is going to have coming up, but
just waiting for that one. I was going to bring a fork out here, but I don't have one.
And I mean, you have like, AP, Craig, AC sitting 7 to 9. None of those guys are going to come in and beat them except maybe Justin Cooper. And so if I'm Cooper, I'm trying to push Star to open up another 450 spot for me and trying to stay there because I think he's worth a hire, but I don't know, whose spot is he going to take? Who are you going to give up? A lot of guys are locked in, and Cowie already has AC locked in. Craig's already locked in over at Husky. You're not going to replace Barsha with Justin Cooper, I wouldn't think. Not right now, because he's not going to come in and get the results that Barsha is going to get right away. That would have to be a long-term play. So it's almost like you need an extra bike somewhere. And the other guys, I think they need to start looking at support teams or building their own programs.
Yeah, I think that if I could see anybody adding a bike, I could see Gas adding a bike, and if it's between those guys, honestly, I would probably go with either Justin Cooper or Nichols. They're still young, they're still fast. They've won 250 championships in recent history. But I wouldn't be surprised if that second bike becomes Aaron Plessinger over on that team, making it two at Husky, 2 at KTM, and 2 at
who are your 2 at KTM? Do you think Webb's not staying?
You don't think Webb stays there?
I don't think Webb stays there.
Is Muscan done?
Well, and I'm just going off with some of the stuff I've listened to, and 2 very intelligent riders, and that were on a different broadcast, and Millsaps and Andrew Short, and the way they kind of heard things, rumblings going over there, and and it was I listen to everything I can because I love when people are talking about where are riders going, like what are teams thinking, because I think that is such a fun part of any sport is because they're building they're looking to see building a brand with a new rider, and the attitude I heard about that was being thrown at Webb, and Webb being unhappy there, and him coming out of nowhere this spring or this winter, and the last this Supercross season is rad. But do you think KTM has any chance of opening up? Obviously Marv's been gone all year. I can't see Marv coming back from a broken scaphoid and navicular in his wrist, and being healthy for next season. I think he's kind of just disappeared, and sadly Marv, we might not see him again on a factory Supercross bike. And last 2 years they've ran 3 450s at KTM, and if only one's coming over is Sexton, and maybe AP's leaving, or if he's staying, does Husky or does KTM have a second or third rider? That's a fun kind of way to look at things. And obviously that's would be only a Supercross only. So I know maybe Colt Nichols goes that way. I don't know, just spitballing.
I don't see them adding a third rider for a Colt Nichols. I don't. The results aren't there. I mean, sure. I hate to be harsh, but he hasn't earned a factory ride by any shape or form. He's been the worst factory guy race after race after race. Like that's
we even see him putting in Supercross.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is you have to put in really, really good results to get somebody to want to add an extra bike for you. And he definitely hasn't done that. I think Cooper maybe did enough to get people excited enough to say, okay, we can work with this and build with this, because he consistently was up in the mix, and it was his first year, and created some value for himself. But I don't see it anywhere else. I don't see KTM doing it, but I could be wrong. I think they've only run that third bike just simply because they feel like they owe it to Marv, because he's been there forever, and loyalty, and it's somewhat easy. I don't think that they want to run 3 bikes, would be my guess and my assumption, unless if Nichols came back and started ripping off podiums, well then somebody would open up an extra bike for him, but that's not about to happen. I mean, we saw it with Roxon. Nobody opened up an extra bike for Roxon, for crying out loud, and he's somebody that can get on the podium and win races and has championships and a huge following. So to think that they're going to take a guy that's got 1 top 10 on the year and make him a spot, that's not going to happen.
And good set.
Totally agree. Last one for this segment, Debo. With the Supercross win, Eli is now tied for second with James Stewart for all-time wins. Who is your top 5 Supercross racers of all time, and why? Rapidly. Give me
rapidly. We'll get this thing knocked out real quick here with these guys, because obviously there's no one. MC, I don't think 72 wins is ever going to be a match. People are always like, oh, it can happen. I'm like, you start trying to figure out the time frame it's going to take for someone to get to 72 wins like Jeremy has and the domination he's had. And obviously a big fan of Jeremy's and known him forever. And so he is obviously the king. I don't know, there's such a tight group behind him between Eli, Stewart, Carmichael, and Reed and Filippoto. They're all within 9 wins. So then he starts looking at championships. RC's got what 5 Supercross titles to go with his 48 wins. So I'm going to have to put RC at number 2. I'm an old school son of a bitch. I've already talked about my Mount Rushmore. I got Ricky Johnson up there. I know Ricky Johnson's got 28 wins, and I'm not even sure how many titles he's had, so I should have probably looked this up before we started this, but I'm a huge fan of Ricky Johnson. There was in a very demanding era of the 80s. Huge fan of his. His career was taken away from him too soon with an incident at Gainesville with Danny Storbeck. And he's my third, which is, debatable, let's be honest. James Stewart revolutionized the way people rode a dirt bike. He might only have 2 Supercross wins, but he was one of the most exciting people I think I've ever watched ride a bike. I think 99.9% of the country or world of motocross fans would agree with that. So I'll slide in James Stewart number 4. And at number 5, I'm gonna go down. I'm gonna let Eli get this third win of this third championship under his belt and get another 4 or 5 wins. There's 6 rounds left. He can get 3 more wins and put him at 53. That's phenomenal, man. So if Eli can get his third win title with a couple more wins, I'll slip in Eli Tomac at number 5 and regret I ever called him Eli Tomac. I'd like to take a little responsibility for all these wins.
Yeah,
I really
absolutely.
think it's
you might be getting a residual check in the mail.
I think it's pretty insane that would potentially bump off. I would think Chad Reed would have been 5th before the Eli thing. Yeah. And knowing that Chad had to race 2 guys that are on the top 5 list and still was able to knock out 44 wins is pretty incredible. I don't disagree with you at all. But that's pretty nuts to me that a rider that was that good, or that 3 of them were that good all in the same generation, have that many wins against each other. It's pretty crazy.
And Filippoto, I mean, he came in and whooped ass. He's got 4 titles as well. And
4 titles, 10. He averaged 10 wins per title.
Yeah, so I'm with Villeporo, big fan of his as well. My RJ pick is more just he was my hero growing up. He was posters on my wall, and to call him a friend, and that's just someone I've always admired and dug his style. And so he's on there just because of who he is and what he set the stage in, and the way he revolutionized the attitude and the coolness factor that I think that just kind of paved the way for the 90s and McGrath and Fro and all of us. And that's why I've always have RJ on my top 5. He's just a bad motherfucker in my book.
Yeah, totally agree. For all those who don't think that Jeremy McGrath's 72 wins is out of reach, keep in mind that you would have to average over 7 wins per year, winning almost half of the races every year for 10 years straight in order to tie or come anywhere close to MC. So he was he's the greatest to ever do it in a stadium. Period. That I don't think I honestly don't think anyone has a real good argument for that. Just on the sheer volume of wins and also a pure showman, the way he did it. Moving on to our next segment, which is brought to you by RiversideRaceway.net. These are the RiversideRaceway.net versus challenge questions. And this is where, 2 guys enter. There are really no winners in all of this. But if you have any questions about Riverside Raceway, you can visit their website and come to the AMA Iowa State Championship, which is happening Easter weekend. Where it sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. I myself will be at World Mini, not too heck of a lot farther away, but either way, we won't be in the same place at the same time, but we will most likely be disagreeing with each other, and that's what this segment is all about. Last week, I have to mail a gong or a belt to Debo because that was an absolute shit kicking. 5-1 Checkers. Hang your head in shame. You are now currently losing by 3, 17-14 in the total series versus questions. Since you won, Debo, I'll give you the floor first to gloat about your win and possibly rub salt in the wound for Checks.
Well, it's just the fact that Checkers writes the script. He's the one that makes up the matches. He's the one that allows himself to go first at times. And even when he doesn't go first, when he does go first, he'll take the rider he assumes I'm going to take. And unlike Checkers, I won't just side with him because I think because I agree with I just refuse to agree with him. So I'll just go the other guy, go 100% with him, and just let Checkers be wrong, which he obviously this week up 17-14. He's constantly berating me on social media. It's quite insulting. I'll tell you, it's very upsetting, but he's getting his ass kicked right now. So let's dive into this thing with round one. What do we got?
Checkers, any tears or rebuttal?
Nope, it's fine. I'm just gonna, I got my butt kicked last week, but I'm still only down by 3, so that just shows how terrible Denny normally is at this. We'll be just fine. And
yeah, you're still behind.
For the record, I try to make these as 50-50 as I possibly can and make them really difficult for us. And I think I did a really good job of it this week. And I'm literally looking at the list, and I don't know. When I wrote them, I still didn't know who I was picking, and I still don't know. I'm doing this all on the fly completely. And well, maybe I told you in our thread I was going to start making it something like Chase Sexton versus Cade Clayson or something like that. It's so I could take Sexton and fucking probably still get that wrong because Chase would probably crash and get 22nd. But
there's no guarantee.
I can totally rig this game if I want to, but I definitely haven't been.
No, and you always pick some good ones. There's always some good matchups. Absolutely.
Yeah, I feel like we've had this first one more than a few times, but it's still a good one.
Yes, certainly is. Kicking things off since Checkers he got his butt kicked the last one, so we'll let him lead off and try and lick his wounds a little bit. Checkers, when it comes to for this weekend coming up, or I guess next weekend at AZ for the Glendale Supercross, Christian Craig versus AC. Who gets more points? Who finishes ahead of who?
Yeah, and like I said, this is a really tough one because AC has been a little bit better. He showed some speed the last couple of weeks. Last week actually made me really nervous because of him qualifying well. And I was like, oh man, is he going to, try to be a front runner? And usually when he does that, that's when he crashes out, where most of the year it looks like he's been managing and staying out on the racetrack. But his good starts are a huge benefit on a Triple Crown format. But Christian Craig, he just won a heat race. I think he's getting better and better and better. Coming from 22nd to 9th, yes, it was past a bunch of privateers, but that's a really, really good performance on a really demanding track. And I'm going to go with the fact that it's supposed to be a long loop section and it's going to be hard pack. And we all know Christian Craig has amazing throttle control. And I'm hoping that his starts won't be too bad and that he'll be able to edge out AC. But I think that this is a really good one. And I'm going to go Christian Craig. And what do you think, Denny? You going to agree with me?
Well, you didn't give any of the reasons why you would be correct or incorrect for the week before, because last week you took Craig thinking that the ruts were going to benefit him over AC, while completely forgetting how well AC rode at Detroit in all the ruts and how much better AC's been in the ruts than Craig. And now this weekend, Craig has been known to be, I think, a better hard packed rider. He grew up in Southern California, El Cajon area, San Diego area. He's going to do very well on this track. I would like to take Craig. You already took Craig. And so I've already told you multiple times, I'll never agree with you, even if I have to, and probably should be. I'll go down with the ship. AC's been riding very well. I like I said, while we were doing the show, I was rewatching the 4D main event again, and he was right up there, those good starts. And Craig has yet to pull the trigger on being able to run up front in the main event. AC has multiple times. I think we've agreed that AC can get a whole shot, and now we've proven that Craig can get a 22nd place start, and they'll meet somewhere in the middle, which is kind of usually where I spent my career, getting a really good start and then kind of fading back and meeting whoever else was coming through the pack. So this one, I'm going to have to go with AC again. He's getting better and better, and Craig's riding better as well, but I'm going to go with AC in this one, obviously, just simply because you went with Craig, and I'll never side with you.
I appreciate you guys sticking to the plan and disagreeing with each other. May the best man win. Like I said, there are no winners in all this. Just a couple of guys spitting out facts. One of the things I love about this particular segment is you get two experts who you can make the beauty of the sport is you can make a case for either one of us. And then someone gets to be wrong. Debo, this one's coming at you hot. Oldenburg versus Voland. They are pretty close to each other in points, speed, and everything else in between. Who you got?
Well, I recently just popped out a top 10 East-West list. I saw someone else post one recently in in an article, and I was almost laughable. I didn't even know if the person ever even watched a race all year long. So I'm going to go with Oldenburg. I didn't have Max in the top, in my top 11, top 10 and a half, because I had the brothers up front with 1.5, and I had Oldenburg about 9th. The only person I maybe regret is maybe not putting Lopes in, because he's actually beaten Oldenburg in every round so far except one. Max has kind of been the trailer behind those guys. So I'm going to go with Mitchell Oldenburg with the position over Max Vohland. I think he's just smarter. I think he's got more experience, and he gets those bikes, those Hondas run. He's going to get a good start. Max gets good starts too, but he seems to make mistakes and get caught up in it all. Where Oldenburg just has been, I've been there, done that situation for him, and I can see him running top 5. Where Max is probably going to be around 8 to 9. So I'm going Oldenburg. What do you got, Checks?
I got you being wrong on the fact that Max is going to be around 8 or 9. I mean, he's went 5 DNQ, 5, 7, 5. So he hasn't been anywhere near 8 or 9 all year, and it's a Triple Crown. So at least we know he's going to make the main event.
And get a good start.
I'm a big Oldenburg fan. I really appreciate the fact that he went from being that Pierce Brown type that was wide open fast, but crashing all over the place, and has really steadied himself out to be super consistent. But I haven't seen the speed from him this year as much that he had. You know, he's not starting up front and battling with the lead group nearly as much. I mean, I remember last year there was times that he was qualifying second, third. I think he even was fastest at times. And I mean, his results the last 2 weeks have been 8 and 9 and have fallen off quite a bit. I do think he rides really well in Phoenix. I like the fact that he's older and more consistent for a Triple Crown. Like, I think he'll finish all the races well, which makes me nervous with Vohland. But the fact is Vohland's been faster, and I got to go with the guy with the speed and let it ride a little bit and hope that, you know, he's riding for a ride, and he's also riding with more experience than he's ever had. I think he'll qualify well. I think that factory KTM will get him off to a good start. And I have Vohland beating Oldenburg, so I will definitely take Max Vohland. But it'll be interesting to see, because it means Max not beating himself, because I think he beats Oldenburg if he doesn't beat himself.
Fair enough. Yeah. Very well could happen. Next one, we have a couple of guys who do extremely well at Triple Crowns. And in fact, I think they both have a Triple Crown overall win. Checkers, you get to go first on this one because you just answered. So Ken Roczen versus El Hombre.
El Hombre.
Yeah, I mean, this is really interesting because of Roczen at a Triple Crown is typically good. He actually slid up to Ty Anderson in points, which is pretty incredible. It's better than I thought he was going to do this year. He's kind of stabilized his results a little bit with this bike. You know, the last 5 races, he's been 5th. He did not win. I don't know why I have a 1.
Who?
He did win. Oh my gosh. Sorry guys, brain fart. It was kind of a big story. He did. He went 5-7, 1, 5, 6. So he's kind of been hovering kind of around that 5th place spot with the exception of the win. Anderson's been pretty terrible compared to what we expected, I guess. Even with a 9th place finish that was really bad in Detroit, which was a harder packed track, where we expected him to maybe do better. But Anderson typically delivers when it comes to Arizona, and it's the second half of the season. There's no way I'm picking Ken Roczen. You can have him, Denny, because I think Anderson, you know, he's still averaging around a 5th place finish. He's been beating him a lot of the time. I'm super confident about it, as you can tell, and I'm a huge Jason Anderson fan. The whole year's been kind of a letdown for me. I mean, we're not even talking about him maybe winning a race anymore at this point, and he had 7 of the dang things last year. So
crazy,
Denny. Yeah. You can try to sell either side, because I can't sell either of them very well because I have no confidence in either one of them. But I'm taking Anderson.
Well, I'm glad you kind of went El Hombre, because and he's been, you know, his best race this year was Anaheim 2, which was a Triple Crown. You got a second. And one of the crowns, whatever you want to call it. But I believe Roczen right now is riding a little bit better, and the starts are definitely better. I think that we see Ken getting top 3 starts in all 3 of the crowns, where Jason has kind of had to push his way through the pack. And then all of a sudden we see him doing great things. The camera goes away from him, and next thing you know, he's on the ground again. He doesn't sound confident in his interviews. He seems like he's as lost with his results as we are as fans and skeptics and guys who thought he was really going to come in swinging. So I'm going to go with Ken, because I think Ken's going to get the starts, and he's feeling good on the bike. I think he's happy with things. I don't think we're really going to see that big second half fade that our buddy Stan predicts, and we've seen from Ken in the past. So I'm going to go with the 94, the Hep Suzuki, and taking down Jason, which I would have not said a month ago, 2 months ago, 6 months ago. Man, I think we're all ready for Jason to come in this year and swinging. But it's been Ken kind of building each round and taking that win, and I'm going to see rocks in Phoenix or Glendale.
Well, he's certainly won there before. Next one, I think I know how this one's going to go, as well as my blood pressure going up when Denny continues to insist on pronouncing this young man's name incorrectly, or maybe I'm saying it incorrectly, is none other than Styles Robertson versus not Carson Brown, Pierce Brown. Who are you going with? Styles or Pierce? Debo.
Well, man, it's a tough call with him. Do we even know if Robertson's going to be okay for next weekend for Phoenix?
That was a big said he's fine. Digger.
Oh, he is fine. I hadn't heard anything on his shoulder or anything, and rewatching it the other night. It looked like his shoulder was pretty jacked up, but
he dislocated it for sure, right? Like that's confirmed.
Oh, it was.
I'm not sure. The press release just said he was going to be in Glendale and that he was okay. So
okay. That looked like dislocated. When your shoulder is down like that and you're like holding it that way, that is, and like I've had shoulders go. I could probably race 2 weeks later, but yeah, it's not comfortable at all.
Well, I think one of our, just slip this off the subject as we tend to do sometimes, one of Checkers and I's best friends, Matt Byton, nearly beat Jerry McGrath in a 50-foot step-up X Games battle with a shoulder that bopped out multiple times. I'll never forget him landing like a ton of bricks as they do and step up and landing and literally punching his arm in the air to pop that son of a bitch back in. That's not an injury I've ever had. And so, yeah, I can't imagine ever doing what he did. What a badass Matt Byton is, our good friend. And so I always got to throw him in there. But as far as between Silas and Brown, I can't choose Brown, man. I choose him. I chose him on my fantasy team, and it's just never gone well. I'm not a fan of his, but he needs repeatedly, once again, on the ground early in the main event, did something stupid. So I'm going to go with Robertson. I was very impressed, or not impressed, but I was pumped that he was going to get a chance at Star. I kind of liked, I was a fan of his at Husky. So I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to keep saying it, Mr. Styles Robertson in Glendale, Arizona.
Yeah, because you get Brown.
I don't necessarily have to take Brown. I definitely hate taking Pierce Brown. I knew that I was going to get stuck with this, and I still put it in there because now I have to make this decision. And the fact is, I really like Styles Robertson. I have very little faith in his shoulder, but I have even less faith in the fact that Pierce Brown isn't going to crash at least once, probably twice throughout 3 main events in the Triple Crown.
Yeah.
What the hell am I mean, I might as well just go jump off a bridge or something versus pick in this fucking category. I don't know who made this question, but they're an absolute idiot because my choices are go with the dude that's super banged up and agree with Denny, or pick Pierce Brown. And fuck it, we're picking Pierce Brown. We're gonna put it all together. We're getting on the podium at the Triple Crown. Let's go, baby. Team gas all the way. Gas, fun all the way to the podium. Oh, might as well go down in flames if we're gonna go down, right?
Well, there was ever a chance for Pierce Brown to prove me wrong and prove you right. That's kind of in the script for our friendship over the years, is that some random will definitely take the win.
Torture chamber.
Watch Pierce Brown go 1-1-2 next weekend. He's still would not be on my fantasy team. No chance in hell.
Yeah, like,
him and Jack
the
Chambers,
ultimate.
I'd rather marry a monster girl.
Lesser of two evils. Guy with a banged up shoulder on one of the most gnarly, longest nights of racing that he's got to race all 3 races and all that fun stuff, or a guy who harnesses the power of gravity on a regular basis, getting through an entire night without completely destroying his motorcycle or himself. Like I said at the top of this, there are no winners when it comes to this segment.
It's only fitting though that I did the night that you said I would rather marry a monster girl than pick Pierce Brown. I picked Pierce Brown and he laid out some good points and pulled for me.
There you go.
So, and I think Chambers made.
I don't know if I think I had him in MXD as well. I think I had him in both, and he delivered in both of the games for me. So
yeah, damn it, man.
We're just gonna team up again and kick your ass again, Denny.
It happens.
Well, didn't do a lot of kicking ass in this segment last week, so maybe pipe down a little bit there, Checks. But I do actually need you to speak up a little bit because this next segment starts off with you, Barsha versus Plessinger, the battle of the Austrian brands. A couple of guys who have very distinct riding styles. Who you got?
Well, Barsha's ahead in points, but barely. AP's obviously been flashy, but Barsha's been hot. I think that this is a really sweet matchup. I just don't see AP getting it done for 3 of the main events, where I think Barsha is going to be in the top 5 of all 3 of the races. I could see AP ripping out to a start in one of them and getting a, second or third in one, but I don't think he can, I think he'll also get a 7th or something in one. So I have to go with Justin Barsha just because of his consistently being there. But man, AP's been awesome, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him have a really, really good race or two.
I think it totally set me up on this one, honestly. Barsha, we talked about, I just talked, I think 3 minutes about him earlier in this show, that how great he's been riding. AP's been riding phenomenally too, but you look at his last 5 rounds, even though AP had one run, possibly could have won that one round, he's gotten beat by Barsha, I think, every other one. So I think you totally set me up on this, but I'll go with AP just despite you. And I think AP wants that win. The entire fan base of Supercross would love to see him get this chance out front. He's been getting phenomenal starts. Barsha's had to actually come through the pack and wear guys out. So I do like your prediction that AP could get possibly a whole shot and take off, because he's not in this points chase and he can get away from these guys. And I think everybody else is so focused on themselves, as we saw in that Detroit round, that allowed AP to get away, because these guys are so battling for points from ET to Sexton to Webb to Roxton, that these guys will interact so much with themselves that AP can just take off. And I know we got 3 main events for him to get that done. So I just got to pray that it happens all three of these crown rounds, or crown main events, whatever the hell they're called. But I guess I'm gonna have to go with Aaron Plessinger over the Mr. Bam Bam of Justin Barsha, just to bite Checkers again, or despite him.
I like it. So we're going to stay with Debo on this one. We got the Chef versus Lopes. Both guys have been very dominant at certain times. Honestly, I think both guys were performing better than expected. And that's what makes this one difficult. Who you got, Denny?
I'm going to go with the Kitchen. That's not even a question. I think I'm a big fan of Lopes as well. And he rode very well last week, as Checker said. He kind of did it invisibly from 13th to 4th, while the 3 up front were running. And Kitchen won himself a heat race, looked good. The main event, he maybe struggled a little bit, but I think that I think Kitchen has a brighter future. I think he's the one on the better structured team. Maybe I think nothing wrong with Club MX. They're like, let's just go with Kitchen before I say anything more stupid here. Other than that, I left Lopes off my top 11 team. I had Kitchen in the top 7 or 8. So for me, it's kind of a no-brainer. Just let's go with the Chef.
Well, I mean, Lopes is beating him in the points, so we have that going for us. Lopes is crazy fast. Lopes beat him last weekend. I'm trying to convince myself of this as well. I mean, Kitchen did win the other Triple Crown that we've had.
Yeah. And Lopes, it seems like anytime I pick him and think he's going to do well, like an MXD, he has some weird grenade race, I love blue, that I don't think any of us expect. He just doesn't crash necessarily. He just doesn't ride that good, but blazing fast speed. So didn't mean to interrupt you. Go with what you got.
I think
brother.
Checkers is fucked on this one.
Yeah, I mean, Lopes is coming off of a high. I mean, he had an amazing ride last weekend. He was 13th at the end of lap 1, but he was actually further back from that and came all the way back to 4th, and went around Kitchen. So I can make that argument, but Kitchen had a rock in his brakes, so he lost his brakes. Yes, I am absolutely effed, because my choices are either agree with Denny or most likely be wrong. I really am becoming a fan of Enzo Lopes, and I'm getting there where I'm starting to trust him a little bit more and starting to believe in him a little bit more. And maybe I just need to go all the way there and just start to trust him and believe in him. He's not nearly as loose and sketchy as he used to be. He's smoothed out a little bit. So, I mean, here's the thing. He's beating him in points. He beat him last weekend coming through the pack, so he's going to beat him again. I'm going to go ahead and go with Enzo Lopes, so I don't have to agree with Denny, and because I'm going to be right.
I like that. Don't agree with me.
I do
I can make this 6-7-0 this week.
I think we're gonna have to, like, I know we're getting a gong from Ian, but we're gonna have some sort of plaque trophy made up. I was actually talking to Max Anstey earlier today, and he said his favorite thing, or thing he was looking forward to growing up, was a trophy bigger than him, and he never got that. So I'm sure there's some sort of bowling trophy on consignment that we can find for one of you to award to, and would not hesitate to cover the shipping on getting that to whoever ends up winning this segment that has no winners. Especially when you have a versus question like this. Cole Seely, a guy who won a Supercross, took at least 4 years off, I think. Versus Grant Harlan. And unfortunately, this last weekend, Grant got the better of Seely, which no one really saw that coming unless like you're really down on Seely. Checkers, who you got?
Well, first of all, I want to start off by saying that Grant Harlan has had an incredible Supercross season. Like,
yes,
he was struggling to make main events last year. I think the only main he actually made in the 250 class was at Daytona. And now he's not only consistently in 450 mains, but once he's in those main events, he's really solid and he's riding forward. He was 13th place last weekend. His average main event scores 16th. He's been in 7 of the 11 main events. It's 19th in points. So he's been great. But the fact of the matter is Cole Seely, even if he's out of shape, barely been riding. He's won a flipping race in this 450 class before. And in fact, he's won at Phoenix before. I sat and watched it. He's amazing on the hard pack. I think he'll be better because I'm sure he was very worn out and tired last weekend. But did you guys see that racetrack? It was physically demanding. And what a hellacious place to try to come back and race us first Supercross of the year on, with all the ruts and gnarly bumps and edges and how technical it was. And now we're going to go to a Triple Crown 2 where the races are a little bit shorter. We're going to a venue that he's won. Debo, you're screwed because Cole Seely is going to smoke Harlan this weekend, I think.
Man, I want to reach through the screen right now and give you a big hug and a kiss, because there was no way in hell I was taking Cole Seely anywhere on this whole weekend. He's had a great career. Much respect for the way he rides a dirt bike. Personally, I've never been a huge fan of his. Going back to this last week on Twitter, someone had posted a question. How do you think, not to me directly, just what do you think Cole Seely's going to do? And I said he's going to have a very well and hard-earned 15th, and that fans who think a rider can come off the couch and run with the big boys are usually mistaken. But I think he'll run 15th. So good luck. And for some reason, I guess he was tagged in the Twitter original comments. So he came off and said, I never said that or something, and called me an idiot. And so he ran the 160 number, which is is a family number. It was my dad's first number, national number back in the 70s, and was my first number on MR50 until I raced Ponca City NMA and got the number 360. So I made a post on Instagram basically telling him, I guess I am an idiot because I predict you get a 15th. You got a 21st, dipshit. So and I heard a lot of people kind of comment the same thing, that they weren't real big fans of him, but nonetheless, Grant Harlan, I like him. He's cool. He's done. He is so sneakily what he's done in the Supercross season this year, and I don't think I've picked him once, but he's been an incredible value. And any fantasy game of Supercross, MXT 360, or any of our draft games, he's putting down very consistent results. And so for me to take Grant Harlan this weekend in Phoenix is an honor. So thank you, Chex, for allowing me to take him and not the other guy.
I like it, boys. We're going to tabulate that, see who does what in 2 weeks' time after the Glendale Supercross. Last call bonus prediction for you, absolutely slobbering idiots. You guys make a mess of this every single week, but it's a weekend off. This weekend we get to, and it's tomorrow night. All eyes will be fixed on the Arena Cross Series. You'll see some injection of talent in throughout the night, and not just the girls holding the 30-second board. You have Kyle Peters, who is now a 4-time champion in Arena Cross, the AMA Arena Cross Series. He is not like your reigning champion and now 2023 champion. And he'll be taking on the General Tire Supercross Arena Cross champion in Michael Hicks. Last time they got together, Hicks got the better of Kyle Peters, but at the same time, Hicks was on a 450 and on a big stadium like they had in where were they? Guthrie, Oklahoma. Beautiful. I'd really like to go attend that event because that floor looks awesome. Looking forward to doing that next year. But we got the AX expert in Debo who raced these damn races, as well as Checker, who's going to respond. So who you got this weekend, Kyle Peters or Michael Hicks, Denny?
What city are they in exactly?
Louisville, Kentucky.
Well, I couldn't be happier for Robbie McCory. We're proud of him and his partner for what they're doing, bringing Arena Cross to the forefront again. sat and talked to him for quite a long time at Loretta Lynn's this year. While he was even done with his race, I think I was still sweating more than he was, and I was just there hanging out with checkers. But he believes in what this series can bring to the table. I think we're seeing Supercross riders who are green because on their weekends off now, they're going and racing. So just to round that up, that conversation of just what I'm spitting out is great job, AMA Arena Cross, great job, McQuarrie, and the whole everybody to believe in it, all the riders. So with that said, I'm gonna have to go with Kyle Peters. I believe he's racing a little bit more of a demanding series than Hicks, although Hicks has been racing Supercross and had some very solid results. I know that the champ Peters he's not racing AMA Supercross after this. I think he's getting prepared for the World Supercross series. But I know that the champion, I know the eagle that runs in arena cross, it runs in every sport, but I think it runs stronger in arena cross because it's just such a small knit group. And I think we saw a fight. We're going to see a penalty box, I guess, for a couple of guys that got in a fight this last week.
The Denny Stevenson penalty box, by the way. I had that named after you.
Wow. Well, that's fantastic. Anyways, Kyle Peters taking down Michael Hicks in Louisville, Kentucky at the finale, and all hats off to everybody. I wish them both the best of luck and knock someone down. I hope one of them cleans the other one out in the last corner.
I like it.
Well, if anyone's going to do any cleaning out, it definitely won't be Kyle Peters because he honestly doesn't race like that. He avoids those situations as much as he can. But Michael Hicks has a big old goal to try to, make a name for himself. And he has the most to gain from this situation. He already beat him once. I don't care if he's on a 450, he's still lined up out of his championship, but he still had his own championship to, worry about, to stay healthy for. Peters has wrapped up his title. Hicks has wrapped his title up. So this time there's no excuses of we're just protecting a championship. Hicks is going to come in. He's going to be the enemy. Absolutely 100%. And I guarantee he will embrace that. The dude has insane talent and he has a lot to prove. And, here's the thing. We all know Kyle Peters is great. He has years of Supercross experience, podiums to back that up, but he's also older and wiser. And he knows that when to shut the throttle off. You know what Michael Hicks doesn't know is when to shut the throttle off when he wants something like this. I watched one of the most amazing knockdown, drag out, ghost rides ever at the Council Bluffs Arena Cross when I came down to hang out with you guys for New Year's from Grant Harlan, who we were just talking about after he got a slam fest with Hicks. He knows how to play that game. He's got the most to gain, and he's on a freaking Storm Lake Honda, so I'm not going to let my teammate down. He does air wheelies for me when he wins sometimes. Let's go, Michael Hicks, baby. We're going to make this thing hopefully very entertaining. I know I'll be on my couch with popcorn watching this thing live on the Ride TV app tomorrow night.
Well, the funny thing is you said about Hicks coming in, they ride two different series. And I know for a fact that if this would have been late 90s, early 2000s arena cross, that Michael Hicks would have not only had to deal with the champ, that he would have to deal with everybody. And we would have probably put him down in practice as we would do. But I think it's a different era. But maybe Bitterman or somebody will kind of put him down or something, get his attitude. But as you said, Hicks is used to that. He's a very aggressive rider, very fast. Corner speed seems to be outrageous. So I look forward to it. Great question. Power to the Arena Cross series. A way to bring it back.
Yeah, I think the sport is better when Arena Cross is a healthy series. I truly, truly believe that. It's a discipline in and of itself. It creates stars in its own realm. And I think it's in a great spot. It's time, once again, to debate with Debo. And this time we got to double down with a part 2 question. Part of it brought to you by GL's Drunk Picks on Twitter. Can you explain a little bit of that there, Checkers?
He posted the question and I thought it was really good. So the first part of it is the first part of this question actually I took from him on Twitter. So just giving him a shout out because I stole his content.
I like that. Fair enough. We don't steal things aside from versus question wins, which is Denny's expertise. Denny, is the problem with Chase because of the bike, the trainer, the coach, or is it only rider?
I think it's absolutely mental. And I'll use the perfect example that I used against you guys when you were trying to tell me that he was going to come back from a 13-point deficit, that all of a sudden Leopard wasn't going to change his spots. And he wasn't all of a sudden going to become this mentally strong rider who was going to break Cooper Webb and Eli Tomac simply because of speed. His speed is there. He is not mentally strong enough with those guys just yet, no matter how fast he is. And I'll go back to 2 weeks ago when he jumped on a red cross flag. Flash red lights, even though the red flashing lights were in a red tough block, which again, pull your head out of your ass on that one. But nonetheless, he made a mistake mentally. He didn't crash, but he jumped, and that's no different to me than a crash. And then he backs it up last weekend while he's out front once again with about 7 minutes left, or I think it was 10 minutes left in the main event. He tucked the front end again and went down. I don't think it's the motorcycle, and that's my main example, is because he made still a mental error when he was out front and it was jumping on a red cross flag. So, and then he backed it up with another crash with the front end. So I believe it's more mental than anything else.
Fair enough. So with that comes the next question, the last question on this particular episode, which is, does Chase working with Alden Baker, who is was featured on the most recent edition of Five Guys, the column that I do on SwapMoto? Want to hear from Alden? Just go check that out. Also looking to do a podcast with him tomorrow. Does working with Alden help if/when he goes over to KTM?
I think it absolutely will help him. And I don't know Alden really at all, other than just kind of bullshit with sometimes when I run it in the pits over the years. But look what he's done mentally, made these guys razor sharp. He'll either break you mentally, physically, or just make you all the better. And I think, look what he did with Webb. You know, Webb went from a championship season to pictures of him looking fat on the back of his helmet because he thought it was funny, and completely being the most highest paid local off-road racer in this country in 2021.
What a turnaround. We need to talk about that after this.
I mean, that's just got to be another perfect example of him, who's a razor sharp mentally when he started riding for KTM with Alden. The year he stepped away was his worst year he'd been with the KTM team. He reunites with Alden, and now is having another one of his best years of his career. There's no question that Chase has everything he needs. He just needs that mental sharpness, and whatever Alden tells these guys and works with these guys, the fact that he's gone from a bicycle racer to working with Ricky to just being one of the best in the industry, and even being a riding coach without really being a racer, has just been pretty phenomenal. And I think Chase will definitely benefit from that as much as anybody has in the past. So I think it's a plus for him, and exactly feeds into my first one, that the mental aspect is lacking, and Alden will bring it 100%.
Thoughts on that, Checkers? We are debating with Debo after all.
I think there has to be something that is more than just mental causing the issue, because it's so consistent and happening so much. I don't know whether it's the way he has his bike set up or anything. I actually want to point to, I think that it would be really good for him to get a riding coach other than his dad. And the reason being is just a fresh eyes to look at the situation. I've been kind of watching, and it looks like he sits back straight up quite a bit, leaving the corners, and it's taking the weight off the front end. That's what I'm starting to maybe see a little bit of a pattern with. And what actually called me to look at that and bring that question up was, as far as the technique side of things, was I was watching RJ Hampshire ride, and he also rides with his back really straight coming into the corners. And he always is notorious, obviously, for pushing his front end in the corners. So I'm wondering if that technique is something that needs to be addressed. That was something that Adam Cianciarulo talked about. We've watched it with McAdoo, of changing technique to prevent crashes. And it's really worked for McAdoo, going to Nick Way and having him there to change his riding style a bit. You know, I don't think it's just mental that McAdoo's not crashing, because he's still trying just as hard and just as gnarly. So I do think that going to a different riding coach could probably help. He had Stu for a while, and obviously that didn't work, but I think I would be going to somebody. I'd be trying anything I can at this point to fix that problem.
I thank you for reminding me. I've actually said this either on our thread or somewhere else, because I tend to have multiple, same opinions, but voice them differently in different spots, and I tend to forget. Is that obviously Chase Sexton has probably one of the most precise riding styles we've seen in years, which for my ear is very reminiscent of David Bailey. Very precise, up over the top of the bike, head over the handlebar, crossbar pad. That's kind of what I went to multiple Gary Bailey schools, and that's what he always taught us. I tended to wonder, with that same body position, if that translates as it's the same success from a 252 stroke or 125 or whatever back in day to a heavier, faster 450. And that was something I questioned, because I do see Chase sitting more further back on the bike a little bit. His head's not so far over the front, although we are still seeing those same mistakes with pushing the front end. But I think they've recognized that maybe that riding that earlier position of over the top might have been an issue, because I do see him riding differently physically and the body positioning, but he's still going down. So for me, that would translate to just still mental and not so much. But again, as I've said, and I think we all agree on any type of change when things aren't necessarily working is always positive, and especially when you're going to a successful program like Alden Baker.
Yeah, certainly that certainly could be a difference maker. I think that would be something that certainly helps him. It's helped guys in the past. Lord knows that. I think working with Alden has a lot to do with the success that Dungy had throughout the tail end of his career. You can also maybe put equal parts responsibility on the fact that he did a lot of his winning when Ryan Villapoto was gone. But either way, I don't think you could pinpoint a guy who was hurt by working with Alden. Maybe they weren't able to be the same race winner as a lot of his other clients. Like obviously he still works with AP, who's yet to get a win for a very short period of time. Where he worked with Dino, who hasn't gotten a win in the 450 class. Jake Weimer, stuff like that. But by and large, Alden Baker, in my opinion, it's just he's that good. You know what I mean? You can't knock anything that he implements. I know there's some guys who have had issues with the diet and stuff like that, but the fact that he's been able to work with Cooper Webb and help turn around basically a career that a lot of people had almost completely had like 10 months ago.
He did it twice for him.
Yeah. 10 months ago, people had him completely written off. And now he's tied in points, red plate, and there's a lot of people who've come out of the woodwork and saying that he's one of the best to ever do it. So, yeah.
I just wanted to add too on the Chase thing that the way that he rides is so precise. And Denny made me think of that is he doesn't make a lot of mistakes. So when he does make them, he doesn't have as much experience of bringing them back and saving them. But where if you watch like an Anderson or a Barsha, they make a lot of little mistakes and ride loose, but they are almost reactionary. Like they let the bike go and then they react to what it's doing. Where Chase is very precise and it expects it to go where it's going to go. And when it doesn't, he almost can't catch it and save it. So maybe it comes down to figuring out how to save these from being crashes and just being mistakes somehow, versus completely preventing them, like getting comfortable knowing, okay, my front end's pushing, I need to do this to not actually crash. I might blow off, miss my line, but I'm not going to completely cartwheel myself through the air. That might be something too, but I don't know how you necessarily change that without just slowing down and not making the mistakes at all. And slowing down doesn't seem like an option.
I will end this. No, that's fantastic. That's perfectly well said. I'll end this whole entire show telling you, I might give you a lot of shit, but you do say some fun stuff that I like always building off of. And that was a perfect example to Chase. That's because I've even said that he could turn the littlest crashes as simply as pushing the front end into a complete grenade, because I don't think he is reactionary to what's going to happen, because he is so used and so precise that when the littlest thing happens, it's not even, he's not prepared for it. Whereas someone like Barsha and Ando are so off the side of the bike and letting the work under them that, sometimes the littlest thing to Chase, just a crash when he landed in the valley that after the finish and the bike shot out. And then again this week, front end pushes a little bit and he catches and it shunts him over the bars. The one weekend when he folded the front wheel, I mean, it's such simplest things. It seems like Ando or Bam Bam would be already ahead of that. He's so far behind it when it happens that he's not reactionary enough. So yeah, fantastic. Well, great conversation, Checkers. Well done.
Absolutely. Great conversation. Great to connect with all these people who are watching. Incredible to me that we actually have the most amount of people watching right now as we've had at any one point throughout the show. That means a lot. I really appreciate all the feedback that we've gotten, whether it be DMs or tweets, you name it. And so we actually failed to execute this properly last week, but we're actually going to do it now. In the 2 weeks between now, actually in the time between now and when the race starts in Phoenix, we are going to draw for a set of a free gold valve kit from Race Tech. And how we're going to give it away is all you have to do, if you're listening to this in the archive, watching it now on YouTube Live, or whatever you guys happen to do, is you want to tweet us. Hopefully you have Twitter. Otherwise, you can send me a direct message at brad@verbmoto.com. Or you can email me there. You have to be following Race Tech. You have to tag myself, Debo, and Checkers in the tweet and make your case as to why you deserve to have why you need this gold valve kit. And we're going to pull that before the race drops on Easter weekend, the Saturday. So make your case, tag the three of us, tweet at us, and may the best person win. Looking forward to getting some awesome entries and hooking some people up. Somebody very lucky with this gold valve kit. So thanks for everybody who took the time to watch this part in the show. We appreciate everyone taking the time.
I wish you would do something instead of why they need that. They should make up a funny line about why Denny is always wrong.
That would also be acceptable. I will accept both answers. Bonus entry. I want to know why you need this, but bonus entry if you can then send an additional tweet as to explaining why Denny's always wrong.
And here I was going to end the show with thanking you both for your hard work and thank you for digging in there, both of you. But now I'm unappreciative of both of you.
All right, guys. Well, thanks everyone for taking the time to watch this show or listen to it. Hopefully you enjoy it. If you're listening to this on Big MX Radio, subscribe on YouTube. We hit 100 subscribers today, which 10 years from now, when I look back at it, being proud of 100 followers is going to be pretty surreal. We're going to keep building this. We're going to keep working on this, bringing more and more content to you guys, and we're enjoying it. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a single episode or anything that I post here on YouTube. Thanks for watching. Get after it. Get out on your motorcycle. Enjoy it. And as always, to you guys, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, everybody.